Greetings once again from the 2019 Chicago International Auto Show at the McCormick Place right on Lake Michigan. So if you were following us on February 8th, Friday, that was last week, you know that we just finished an extended Ask MotoMan episode with Craig Cole of Auto Guide, Jill Simonello of NBC, Scotty Reese of A Girl's Guide to Cars, and of course, the incomparable Ken Soward, who is the design director of Mazda USA and a designer of, I think, 3 generations of Miatas now, also a Miata racer. So we just finished that live stream and still had one more thing to do in Chicago before we get the last bus out of ORD, and that is spend more detail on the GLI. I have made no bones about this. I am a freak about GTIs, love those cars, so kind of like these by design. There's a couple of things we didn't cover in the paquetes that was in the live stream that we're going to cover here. So let's spend some more time with a 2020 Volkswagen GLI in Chicago. Let's do a recap. 2-liter, 4-cylinder, direct-injected gasoline turbocharged engine. In Volkswagen speak, it is known as the EA888. This is in many Audis and Volkswagens. In this, guys, it's 228 horsepower and 258 pounds of torque. Now, we know that comes in, at least the torque comes in very low from the GTI. What I'm surprised about is, I thought for certain they would dumb this engine down, make this the 210 horse, and keep the GTI the pinnacle of sort of like the mid-range sports car in the Volkswagen group. But very happy to see that this actually has almost 230 horsepower. Perhaps I might be a little greedy in asking for a Jetta R version, because 300 horsepower, maybe some power going to the rear wheels, that would be a nice touch and maybe cheaper than an Audi S3. Think of this like an additional question. Would you want to see that, and how much would you pay for it? Now let's move on to some other stuff. Inside, there really isn't a lot to talk about, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, because I do feel strongly that Klaus, he runs design for Volkswagen and his team, they did a wonderful job with the overall design theme of the inside of this thing, where it's still like a German car, meaning the dashboard is angled to the driver. There's still knobs and buttons. That all stays true to a driver's car, which is really what a GTI and a GLI is. Here, the tactile feels generally pretty good in most parts, in some parts not so good. Like we talked about in the first drive view of the Jetta, when you look out the rear view mirror, the parcel shelf, there's no mouse fur on it. It's like plastic, and that's a cost-cutting thing. But that, you have a problem because you get glare from the sun. That's why they put the mouse fur. So I'd like to see that changed. This one specifically is the 35th anniversary edition, so it's got some badging on the door sills and the floor mats. But other than that, it is pretty much standard fare Jetta. So that has all the infotainment stuff like Android Auto, CarPlay, which I have to say works pretty well in Volkswagens. If I'm giving some constructive criticism, I would like to have all of them fitted with a sunroof, which it is on offer. But you know the Verber that they have in the GTIs? Would love to see that here. And then, of course, last but not least, this one has a manual transmission. Now let's get back to the business of the GLI, in this case, the suspension. There's a couple of things I mentioned in the paqueta that we did in the live stream on Friday, February 8th, but there's a couple of things I didn't mention. Now, first and foremost, the biggest change is that rear suspension, independent suspension as opposed to the torsion beam that was in the Jetta we drove back in Raleigh-Durham. But there are other changes. So we talked about the struts in the front. That architecture really hasn't changed from the standard serial production Jetta, but what they've done is they've lowered the overall suspension of the GLI by 0.6 of an inch. Then the brakes changed. So the front rotors, they pilfer them from the Golf R, which is kind of interesting to do this in the GLI. They go to 13.4 inch diameter rotors. Then obviously the wheels change just a little bit, and this is more of a dress up than they are in terms of the overall size. I need to interject here for just a minute. Yes, this is not a Jetta GLI, it's a Golf R, and it's in kind of a funky color. But one huge thing we need to focus on here, remember the old Jetta GLI? That was on the older platform. When this switched over, they put it on a new MQB platform, which underpins the Golf, the GTI, the A3, the S3, basically a lot of Volkswagen and Audis. Well, now the GLI is built on the same platform as the Golf. And then last but not least, on suspension and driving dynamics, there is a limited slip differential that's fitted to the GLI. Now, it was 3-4 years ago, you and I drove the Autobahn package equipped GTI back in California, that had a similar system. So this is not like an old school mechanical diff like in that SL63 we drove, what, 2 years ago. This is an electronic type system, but still limited slip differential, lower suspension, independent rear suspension, and bigger brakes. So this one is fitted with the manual transmission, as you saw. This one is fitted with the 7-speed dual clutch. However, this is kind of like the full kit one, not just that it's red, it's got a sunroof, electric seats, more infotainment, and a bit of fancier wheels. I kind of like the red paint, but to be very honest with you, that's more my favorite in color because it's special. That's the 35th anniversary edition, so it has like that battleship gray look from the Audi world. Now, a couple of things going on here. Number one, I don't know the dollars and cents on this whole thing. My guess, if you look at what a GTI costs, what does that start? It's about 24 grand. I don't see this really going that much higher. So I am gonna turn this question around to you guys and ask you, what do you think is the realistic price for this, considering what we were looking at the Jetta back in Raleigh-Durham? What should this cost as the GLI with 230 horsepower and obviously limited slip and then all the different suspension changes? Let me know what you want to pay, what you currently drive, and what region of the world you hail from. Now, before I say bis später, I want to share something that happened in the hallway, completely off the show floor, yesterday as we were walking back to the hotel. It's a bit of slice of life, and if you've been seeing the show for many, many years, you know I'm a bit of a freak on dogs, so you kind of know where this is going. So before I hand you off to that, I will say bis später. Hi guys, what are you doing? You're chilling.
What you doing, fancy?
You coming to the car show? Did you see your favorite car yet? What do you like? Okay, fine, be that way. Bye. What's her name?
Her name is Fancy.
Hi, Fancy. You are fancy. Do you like
Very
Reba?
Fancy.
Oh, and who's this?
Sega.
Hi, Sega. You were
Sega
so
had a
cute.
good time too. Lots of fun today.
I really knocked out, I can see.
They're going to take some good naps now.
So why did they come to the show?
We are from Hopeful Tales Animal Rescue, and Subaru invited us to come in. All these dogs are up for adoption.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Want to come home with me, Sega? You like California?
So there's a section
You're a
for
sweetheart. Kumo would love you.
rescue dogs to play upstairs.
Oh, they're so cute. Well, thank you guys.
Yeah,
What's the name of the rescue again?
A Hopeful Tales Animal Rescue.
Okay,
There's cars
everybody
up at the
come
Subaru
and
booth.
adopt Sega and Fancy.
And all their friends.
And all the friends. Bye.
See ya. Bye-bye.